For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. At least 26,000 Iraqis have been killed or wounded this year. More than 9,000 civilians have died since January. Half of them were killed after the U.S.-led airstrikes began in June. A new United Nations report has revealed possible war crimes committed by the Islamic State and an increasing death toll as the extremists continue to advance despite the international coalition. A spokesperson for the UN Commissioner for Human Rights calls the report revealing.
This is a really staggering report. It's just covering a 2-month period from early July to early September or mid-September. But it's an astonishing number of abuses committed mainly by ISIL. And just an astonishing array, and the way they've been targeting civilians. The focus of the report is civilians. Really every crime you can think of, and on a massive scale.
Canada has become the latest country to join the U.S.-led military campaign against Islamic State militants in Iraq and Syria. Prime Minister Stephen Harper says his country will only participate in the U.S.-led airstrikes for a 6-month period.
Today we are bringing forward a motion asking this House to confirm its confidence for a government decision to join our allies and partners, the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Australia, Denmark, the Netherlands, Belgium, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, and likely others, in launching airstrikes against ISIL. We intend to significantly degrade the capabilities of ISIL.
U.S. Vice President Joe Biden has accused key allies in the Middle East of allowing the rise of the Islamic State extremist group. Biden says the country supported militants with money and weapons in their eagerness to oust Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Biden held a conference at Harvard University where he told students that America's biggest problem in Syria is Washington's allies. He noted that the U.S. is working with partners to prevent legitimacy for the Islamic State and to cut off financing from foreign fighters. To Latin America, Venezuela is mourning the death of young lawmaker Robert Serra. He and his partner Maria Herrera were found dead at their home Wednesday night. According to reports, Serra's body showed signs of torture before he was murdered. The Venezuelan government ordered 3 days of national mourning. For the latest, here's our correspondent Rachel Boothroyd.
A side which Venezuelan officials have described as cowardly, but also as rigorously planned and executed. An act which brought an abrupt and premature end to the lives of Venezuelan lawmaker Robert Serra from the United Socialist Party of Venezuela and his partner Maria Herrera, who were both found murdered in their home late on Wednesday night.
What they have done to this comrade was totally immoral. It's undescribable and doesn't have a historical comparison anywhere.
Emerging from the student activist ranks of the Bolivarian Revolution in 2007, Serra became the youngest politician to be elected to the National Assembly in the country's history. His fiery and combative attitude endeared him to masses of Venezuelans who spilled out onto the streets to say their goodbyes.
You won't believe me, but when I turned on the television and I saw that news that they had killed Robert, I jumped out of my bed.
Tears were tempered with fists held high in defiance and demands for justice for the two comrades. Many stated that those who had carried out the murder had robbed the Venezuelan people of a potential future president.
Maduro, total justice and an iron fist for those who killed Robert.
The bodies of the two revolutionaries were brought through the crowded streets of Caracas to the country's National Assembly, where they are currently lying in state. Both are expected to be buried over the next few days. Venezuelan authorities have stated that they will not rest until the killers are brought to justice. Rachel Boothroyd for Telesur in Caracas, Venezuela.
And thanks to Rachel. Moving on, the re-election chances for Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff appears to be increasing as the country heads into Election Day Sunday. In hopes of securing a potential first-round electoral victory and avoiding a potential runoff, President Rousseff has intensified her campaign throughout the country. Her final campaign efforts coincide with the most recent election poll by IBOPE showing Rousseff on course to win. The polls reveal voting to be increasing in her favor to just under 50%. In contrast, her main rivals have been gradually losing ground. Judges in Honduras have presented a motion to nullify the government's decision to use lie detector tests in the justice system. Judges argue that the test isn't impartial and call it a political move. Our correspondent Gerardo Torres has the latest.
After 2 years of cleaning up the Honduras police force, more than 1,000 policemen have been dismissed, but none related with corruption or abuse of power. Now the process is about to start in the Supreme Court, but the Association of Judges insists that the lie detector test has proved to be inefficient and used only to get rid of public officials that could become inconvenient to the official agenda.
¿Qué hemos encontrado? Que, por ejemplo, en el caso de los funcionarios policiales...
We have found in the case of several police officers that have taken this test. Many of them have been fired because of the lie detector. Even though many were policemen with a lot of prestige, with a remarkable trajectory as public officials, they have the support of the tribunals of justice because they have been very dedicated to their responsibilities. Others that have passed the test have been pointed out in other occasions of being part of the criminal activities.
Y que han sido señalados como por partícipes de hechos delictivos.
The Honduran Penal Code doesn't allow lie detectors as valid proof because it is against international human rights protection agreements because of its invasive and subjective method. The proof doesn't actually prove that a person is lying. It proves that the person is nervous during the interview. The Supreme Court will have the last word on this struggle.
La Sala de lo Constitucional en
The Congressional Division of the Supreme Court will have to decide if this test is applicable or not in the case of the workers of the judicial power who are responsible of the complaint against the use of this method.
Este tipo de mecanismo.
If the claim of the Association of Judges for Democracy is accepted, great part of the cleanup process of the justice system could be in doubt. Gerardo Torres, Telesur, Central America.
And thanks to Gerardo, 3 Mexican activists remain in jail after they were detained in a march last year to commemorate the 1968 massacre of hundreds of students. Supporters claim that their detentions were arbitrary and used as a form to dissuade political activism. In a similar scene this year, thousands of people have taken to the streets and defied political repression. Our correspondent Clayton Kahn gives us a look.
Gathered outside of a Mexico City court, family and friends decry what they say is the unjust incarceration of student and activist Mario Gonzalez.
It is difficult to know that my son is in a place where he shouldn't be, because from the beginning there has been a lot of injustice and it's completely arbitrary.
Detained 1 year ago at the October 2nd march to commemorate the 1968 student massacre, his mother says his arrest is used as an example to intimidate those critical of the authorities.
No es el caso de mi hijo aislado, hay muchos compañeros que luchan, que están al pendiente, que de alguna manera quieren manifestar su inconformidad y pues son reprimidos y la manera en la que ponen el ejemplo para que ya no protestes es esa, meter a la cárcel a quienes consideran peligrosos.
Yet, there's an apparent large supply of dissident voices. While today's march traditionally pays homage and memory to those killed by the military in the 1968 massacre, it also serves as a bullhorn for today's social struggles. They denounce structural reforms, the country's insecurity and extrajudicial murders, or the incarceration of activists and indigenous leaders who defend their territory.
There is no way except to repress voices and imprison people. We have been here for many centuries, more than 2,500 years, living on our lands. And I think it would be difficult for them to quiet us or to stop the struggle of the Yaqui tribe.
While there is a broad array of demands in this march, many here do agree that the roots of their indignation comes from the same source. Clayton Kahn, Telesur, Mexico City.
And thanks to Clayton, the new government of Sweden has announced it will recognize Palestine as a state. Prime Minister Stefan Löfven announced his decision on Friday. With this move, Sweden will become the first major European country to recognize Palestine. Back in 2012, the UN General Assembly approved the de facto recognition of the sovereign state of Palestine. Most European Union countries have yet to grant official recognition. Catalonian leaders say on Friday reversed an earlier decision to halt a planned referendum on independence from Spain. They say it will proceed despite opposition from Madrid and a constitutional court suspension. Catalonia will appeal the ruling by the Spanish court before the planned vote on November 9th. The recent announcement coincides with a poll carried out by the Catalan Opinion Studies Center, which found that over 70% of the Catalonia population supports holding the independence referendum. A Catalonia Electoral Commission approved yesterday has begun the process of voter registration. Swiss bank UBS is facing a possible penalty of up to $6 billion if it is found guilty in a French probe over tax evasion and money laundering. French officials have accused Swiss banks of helping businessmen evade taxes. The proceedings are still at an investigation stage. Legal motions were made to an investigating judge who will decide whether there is a case against the bank. UBS was ordered by the French courts to issue a $2 billion payment. David Hernandez Salazar from Colombia received the 2014 Innovators Award of America for his artistic creativity. Hernandez was recognized for his invention of a musical instrument that includes components of wind, percussion, and string instruments. The award is dedicated to promote innovation by Latin Americans who change the world. The prize has 4 categories: science, culture, social development, and enterprise. More on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. Have a great weekend.